Thank you everybody for waiting. We are now live with Faisal Aasam, my friend, my longtime friend, and my guest today for this episode. Thank you so much for doing this with me, brother.
Thanks for having me, Zid. Really looking forward to this.
Absolutely my pleasure, man. And I have to say, I missed you. Like, even before Corona, we haven't seen each other in a while. And thanks to this whole situation, we get to reconnect somehow.
It's been a while, and we definitely have mutual interests. We have mutual passions,
Yes.
things that we definitely enjoy in common. And it's been way too long, so I'm excited to catch up.
Man, isn't it amazing how, like, we grew up in the same social circles, but we never really hung out. We never really clicked. You went to uni, I went to uni. We both got married, all this. And then this world of combat, I would call it combat more than fitness, seemed to have reunited us, or actually united us to start with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think people who are big fans of combat sports, mixed martial arts, Jiu Jitsu, Muay Thai, whatever it may be,
Hmm.
once you get into that world, it's not. So I think we both sort of recognize that in each other.
Yes. I definitely think that finding that common ground is what gave us this chance to become closer friends and get to know each other a little bit more. And it's what I always talk about with guests, like with jiu-jitsu. Podcasts that you hear people interviewing, like, for example, not Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's like a master at interviewing, but you hear other podcasts, it feels like there's a brick wall between the guest and the host. But when two people have something in common, like an interest for martial arts, jiu-jitsu, or a similar hobby, that podcast starts flowing a lot better. And I think that's why I've been enjoying this so much.
No, I think even on your podcast, your interviews, it shows it's sort of a conversation between friends. It's a conversation between people who, if they're not friends, they sort of, you see the process of them becoming friends through the
Yeah.
interview, which I think is quite unique. It's quite special. I'm someone who loves podcasts. I consume podcasts every day, different formats, whether it's martial arts, whether it's general interest, sports, news, whatever it is. And I agree with you. There's always sort of that brick wall. It's more of an interview.
Hmm.
It's hard to find the ones that turn into discussions between like-minded people. And I think I've definitely sort of recognized that in some of your interviews.
Man, I appreciate that. And you know what? You brought something to my attention that I even think about. It's pretty much a recording of me developing a friendship with a person on the podcast, because some of the guests, it's the first time I meet them on this platform. So I like thinking of it that way. It's pretty cool. But listen, man, it's a crazy time we're living in, right? We're doing this over Zoom. Anyways, like, this is a convenient way of doing it, but most of life is gone online.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
The other
And
the other day, I was gonna say, like, I saw that you have been also adapting to the online scene with everything that you're up to fitness wise, right?
yeah, that's right. And I think we all have to. I think it's hit every walk of life, every industry, definitely fitness. With martial arts, I think it's quite unique. I think we're still trying to see how it hits martial arts and
Mhm.
practicing martial arts of various forms.
Yeah.
For us personally, and we can get into this when it comes to sort of
Yeah.
explaining what we do. But for sure, we've had to adapt. I mean, I think if you don't adapt, then you're essentially, you're standing still, right? So,
100%, man.
100%, we've had to, yeah.
Usually the impact, the thing that changes an industry or an economy is an individual, a company, a country, right, that tries to pioneer something and it affects change. This time it was nothing. It was a natural cause, well, quote unquote natural, we don't know yet, but it's a virus that forced us to make changes that would have taken, man, some changes that are happening. I'm sure it would have taken 50 years for them to happen. They would not have happened that quickly. Like, the Arab world adapting so quickly to online. Now, we had people that, like, I don't want to put my credit card information online. And today you see them like shopping everything on suit.com or Amazon actually now, and it's changed.
Strange is that before this, I never sort of in my lifetime,
Hmm.
never saw the world so sort of disconnected, right? The
Absolutely.
world was so disconnected. It wasn't a great time in terms of sort of global harmony and getting along and sort of that sort of positive spirit between different populations, nations, beliefs, you name it. But I think, unfortunately, it's taken something like this
Hmm.
to find sort of global cooperation again against a common enemy, right? So,
Very true.
uh, so yeah, it's been definitely sort of interesting to see.
Very true, man. No, it's funny. Yesterday I was my whole family were pretty much together for Ramadan. We try to make it a point every year, regardless where we are. My brother, well, unfortunately, my brother's stuck in Canada now, but he was here just before. We try to make it a point to all be together. Yesterday, I'm going up the stairs. I see my sister sitting next to the stairs on her laptop, and like a million voices coming out of it. And they were having a birthday online. Like, what the fuck's
Isn't that
going on?
crazy? Yeah.
Man, like,
Yeah, it's
it's
crazy times.
a surprise birthday. That's even the crazier part. It's like you walk into a room, there's nobody, no. You hear surprise, and it's your fucking laptop. And you go and you sit in front of it.
Wow. That, I don't know how they pulled that off, but that is the first for sure.
Strange times, my friend. Strange times. But I wanted to ask you, you're a very active guy. Like, I know triathlons, running, swimming, cycling. How does a triathlete survive in a lockdown?
So look, I think endurance sports, triathlon in general, it's something where you train a lot of times on your own.
Yeah.
Right. And people that are sort of really, really into the sport, it becomes kind of like Jiu Jitsu. It's a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you practice. It's something that you do every day. It's a part of you.
Right.
So most of, quote unquote triathletes have their home set up already, even before this whole pandemic.
Right.
Most of sort of the people in my community had a treadmill at home. They had a turbo trainer for their bike, and they would do a lot of their sessions indoors. So I think this population has actually been the least affected, call it from a training perspective in the fitness industry. Obviously, we can't swim. That's something which we all miss. But other than that, even strength training, it's something which people do at home.
Yeah.
Because it's quite sort of basic for a triathlon in the sense that you don't need a ton of equipment.
Sure.
And then running and cycling, you do at home as well, except for sort of your long weekend sessions. So from that point of view, it hasn't been a major shift.
I've been seeing a lot of people cycling on this. I don't know what it is. It's an app or a program. It's like you put your cycle into a system and you got a TV in front of you and a course and people cycling with you. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, so that's I think you're referring to Peloton.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah. So you have even before this whole pandemic took place. I think if we're looking at fitness in general and where it was heading, it was heading towards. You had various shifts which took place, call it in the last 5 to 10 years, right?
Okay.
You had the first shift which was towards functional fitness. Now I'm simplifying this, but we had the shift towards functional fitness, and then from there we had the shift towards functional fitness boutique fitness studios where people were sort of participating in classes. The latest shift that we saw before the pandemic took place was at home workouts, and that's companies like Peloton, it's companies like Mirror, it's companies like Hydro, it's companies like Tonal, which are essentially at home workout accessories where let's use Peloton as an example. You're on your bike and you're streaming on-demand workout classes that are taking place in New York, in London, streamed directly to your screen, and you're taking part virtually from the comfort of your home. So what the current situation has sort of emphasized or highlighted was that those people, those companies, that segment was way ahead of its game. And now what we're seeing is people, the other segments reacting to what's happening,
yes,
as they should, and it's a race to digital, and it has to be. Yeah,
I like that. Like there's the old saying, Seneca, opportunity meets preparedness, right? And a lot of people that are forethinkers, they always think, oh man, I might be ahead of my time. Especially like a lot of us new age people that grew up with the era of the internet and technology. We're very ambitious in our thoughts. And when we think of business ideas, we're like, man, I want to do this. What if we can create that? But everybody's like, man, it's too early. The technology is not there yet. But everybody that actually went for it today stands to win the most because everybody's in research and development figuring out how the fuck they did it, and they're there. So it's beautiful to see how much we've shifted in 2 months. Socially, economically, everything. But have you been keeping up with the recent events in the sporting worlds, like MMA, boxing, and all of this?
Yeah, and it's nice to see that live sports is back, and it's even better to see that mixed martial arts is leading the way.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic. I think we're sort of, I say we because we like to consider ourselves part of this community.
Yes.
We've shown the way forward. We're showing that yes, we should be responsible, but we should find safe ways to move forward.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that MMA used to be looked at as backwards barbaric, and now it's pioneering modern. You know, like I think I was just listening to Mohammed Al Hosseini on Abu Dhabi Sports, and he was saying that the UFC has led the way, and the US is reopening sports and arenas as a result of the efforts done by the UFC. Like Dana White released a 30-page document stating exactly the protocols they followed to successfully have done events with zero corona infections post.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, they're sort of they're setting the blueprint, the
Yeah.
template for how live sports should sort of take place in these times. So it's great to see.
I think it'll be interesting to get into you about the technology side. But before getting into all of that gritty stuff, I want to get to know you a little bit. I want my audience to get to know why you are who you are and why you're in the position you're in. So I don't recall, like, were you always an active guy in school? Because you're always in shape, you're always healthy.
Yeah. So for sure, I think that's the way that we grew up, right?
Yeah.
So our father had us in various sports from the time we were children, right? We were racing motorbikes before we were even riding bicycles.
Right. Yeah.
So that's sort of been always our way of life.
Mm.
That's the way that we grew up, and yeah. So for sure, always been active, always sort of identified with sport and athletics.
Okay, because you have a very interesting background. It's quite diverse. You're not sports through and through. You're very well educated. You've traveled quite a lot. You studied finance, I believe.
Yeah, so I went to university in Montreal.
Mm.
I think it's a city which you're quite familiar with.
Yeah, I miss it.
Um, yeah, it's for me, best city in the world. So I went to university in Montreal. That's also where sort of I, you know, started practicing MMA at
Hmm.
TriStar Gym, which
Ah,
obviously um, and after that, came back home to the Emirates and worked for IMG. IMG is sort of the global sports management company.
wow.
And so
Okay,
that's sort of where I cut my teeth in sports management administration,
interesting.
and did that. Yeah, and sort of did that for a few years before going to business school in the States for my MBA.
Mm.
And then after that, sort of took a shift. I went to Wall Street, worked for investment banking, worked for Barclays, and then Goldman Sachs, and then it was I think it was great experience. But you always have, all of us have that sort of that voice inside of our head that takes us back to what we love, right?
So true.
And some of us try to do it professionally, some of us do it in terms of a hobby,
Hmm.
but we always sort of go back to it. So for me, it was all right. I have sports management experience at IMG. I have investment banking experience at Goldman and Barclays. Can I sort of marry the two and get into sports investments? Um, and so I founded a sports VC
Hmm.
called Empower Sports Partners, and sort of that was my vehicle for entering into sports investments.
Gotcha.
So invested in fitness studios, technology, anything that you could sort of that falls under sport, fitness, wellness. Um, and what I found, Zid, was most industries have consultants, right? I mean, in construction, you have architects, design consultants. In finance, you have
Mm.
consultants. In literally every industry, you have some form of consultants.
Right.
Management consultants that cater to every industry.
Right.
But you don't really have that in sports, fitness, wellness companies, right? So
Very true.
through these companies that I invested in, I realized that these companies need some help, and that's really was the birth of Evolve Sports Solutions. Is essentially we are a wellness focused consulting firm
Hmm.
that helps um, you know sports early stage sports companies and individuals
Hmm.
um, sort of in broad terms reach their aspirations, and we have sort of different ways of doing that.
Interesting, man. It's amazing how it all ties in quite nicely, and it would all sounds like you had that plan. Did you have it planned, or was it something that just fell into place?
It's something which fell into place. I mean, I think it was what was planned was that I was always gonna do sports projects and work in sports, even if I did it for free,
Gotcha.
simply because it's what I love.
Yeah,
And I think I think you're someone who can relate to that.
absolutely.
Um, there's you're doing it's clear your passion for what you're doing is so evident that, I think you would do it no matter what. You would do it for the good of the community. You would do it as a job. You would do it no matter, because you love it. I think that's the
Yes,
underlying reason.
100%.
And for myself, it's the same thing.
I get you, man. Because, the reason I say that is a lot of the times you look at biographies, success stories, you look at people who set up businesses and things that we're interested in. And when you read it, it kind of feels like it's as though they planned it. You know what I mean? Like they talk about it like I did this and this and this and this. But a lot of the times, looking back is easier than looking forward. When you look back, you connect the dots and there's like this logic that comes out. But during the time, there's no logic. Like a lot of people, they go and they buy these programs of business coaches and they tell them, this is what I did that led to success. Then they go and they mimic it and it doesn't lead them to success, because that's not what they did to success. That's how they analyzed what they did towards success. Your drive needs to take you towards success, your passion. So you had this idea, sports management, something to do around sports, and you didn't like, well, okay, perfect, Goldman and Sachs, and I'm gonna work here and then there and then I'm gonna be there. No, that's not how it fucking works, right?
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. It didn't happen like that at all.
Yeah.
It was 100% passion that took me there, and then 100% drive and sort of ambition that's keeping me there.
Yeah. And I think, that's the thing that is also relatable to martial artists, athletes. You're a football player, you're a jiu-jitsu fighter. If you get into it because of the fame, because of the McGregor, there's a high chance you're going to waste a lot of years in your life. All right? There's a high chance that 10 years later you're going to look back and be like, why the fuck did I go down this rabbit hole? And you're going to realize it was just for the money or the fame or something. The guys that got successful in all of our sport industries were the guys that didn't give a fuck. Like they just enjoyed it through and through to their bone, and their family thought they were insane. They're like, man, you've got, Masalan, you, okay, all these degrees, all of this job experience. What are you doing with sports? My family says the same shit to me. You have 2 kids. You've worked in contracting. You've worked in this. Why are you so stuck in jiu-jitsu? Like, it's inside here, man.
Exactly. No, I mean, you can't ignore it. You can't, it's part of you. It's part of who you are as a person, right? You can't ignore it.
I couldn't help but hear when you were saying that while you were in Montreal studying, that's when you trained in TriStar. Is that when you started jiu-jitsu?
No, actually, so I started jiu-jitsu before. So I think it was around that time. I think what happened was my sort of entering into martial arts coincided with 2 things. It was sort of the explosion of the UFC that happened around the time that Ultimate Fighter came out, and some of these and the mixed martial artists started to become humanized, and we all realized what amazing athletes they were.
Right.
And what amazing people they were and how special they were, and you have to be a special person to be a fighter. So I think it's recognizing that and loving the way that they trained, but also what happened here at home in Emirat, and the project that happened here, and sort of the how sort of encouraged it was to practice jiu-jitsu. I mean, we were so fortunate. It was, for the longest time, I mean, I started training in Abu Dhabi Combat Club, which is what it was known as back in the day, and it was free. It was free. I mean, you'd go into the combat club, there would be 50 people every day on the mats, and probably more than 10 of the world's best black belts, and you can just learn from them for free.
Unbelievable.
So it was those 2 things, I guess, which sort of spawned my passion 100%.
What year was that, by the way, like when you started jiu-jitsu?
So that was 2008. That was 2008.
Okay, all right. So that was like right at even maybe just before the beginning of the explosion of jiu-jitsu in the UAE, because it was here for some time before it really got into the school systems, and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed really pushed it into the public school. Man.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, just to go back to your question, it actually was the reverse. I mean, I started training MMA before training jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And did you find yourself, like, after you started training jiu-jitsu, you're like, let me take some time from MMA and focus on this to get back?
Yeah, I think I sort of dove deep into jiu-jitsu
Uh-huh.
because the expertise, the infrastructure was so deep here.
Mm.
And I think at the time it was, if you compare it to the other martial arts, you compare it
Mhm.
to the striking arts, you compare it to wrestling, and you compare it to the whole package to MMA.
Yeah.
I think there was clearly sort of, it was lopsided in a positive sense in sort of jiu-jitsu's favor,
Yeah.
right? So uh, it was just the availability of resources was there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, naturally found myself training more in jiu-jitsu.
That makes sense, man. Whenever people talk to me about like jiu-jitsu, why you love jiu-jitsu, and they start asking me those things, I pretty much tell them, why not? You're in Abu Dhabi. It's like living in Madrid and being 2 blocks away from Real Madrid and having a free class to train with Cristiano Ronaldo and everybody, right? I don't even know if he's still in that team. He jumps so much. But like literally, why the fuck would you not? It's just such a golden opportunity to learn from the best of the best. And we're definitely spoiled for choice. So did you continue jiu-jitsu here? Did you, what happened then?
Yeah, I continued jiu-jitsu here. And I did jiu-jitsu. I did a sort of, that was my life for a while. Did some tournaments. Everything was jiu-jitsu, but I've always been someone who loves training in all different forms.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't sort of define myself as a martial artist, as a jiu-jitsu player, as a triathlete. I just love training, different forms,
Gotcha.
different forms of movement. And then did that, but then moved to the US.
Hmm.
And then started to do, and then when I was in the US, I moved to New York, which is another mecca for jiu-jitsu, as you know.
Yeah.
You had Marcelo Garcia, Renzo Gracie, um, just
Whoa.
just to name two,
Yeah.
right? And I got into more of the no-gi stuff
Okay.
there. and
Of
and
course.
and Abu Dhabi, of course, it was classic gi. And then in New York, I sort of started to get more into the no-gi stuff.
Man, amazing. Like New York at that time, was it Renzo Gracie Academy that you visited? Was it only Marcelo Garcia?
So I think where I considered my home was actually Mushin, mixed martial arts.
Okay.
So, I can consider Eric Owings,
Wow.
my mentor, as from a strength and conditioning for combat sports perspective, and also for jiu-jitsu. And Eric has sort of close affiliations with Renzo Gracie.
Hmm.
He for a while was strength and conditioning coach for George St. Pierre.
Right.
And sort of TriStar and George St. Pierre's camp had, they're closely affiliated with Renzo. So
Yes.
they're all part of the same sort of family, if you will.
Very interesting, man. Eric was somebody you referred me to, and I did an online session with him long before Corona was popular. And man, that guy is a wealth of experience, and I've never seen a guy built like that. I've seen, like, obviously there's fitness people, there's all of these, and but with him, when you see his videos online, when you like see what he can do with his body, like, damn, man, I missed that bus when I was young. Like, that's something that you don't get overnight.
Yeah, and I think his philosophy is so interesting because his sort of end game is not now.
Mm,
It's not becoming the best athlete he can be now. It's, I want to be able to be healthy and to train every day when I'm 70 years old.
yeah,
So everything is about preservation. Everything is about being an active person and a healthy person for the majority of your life.
right.
So it's really interesting philosophy.
Man, that's the thing I think that's going to be the beacon of health and fitness. It's no longer young fitness, it's old fitness. I think the world is slowly shifting from six-pack abs and hypertrophy training towards I want to be 60 years old and be able to do jiu-jitsu, to be 60 years old and ride a cycle and be part of a triathlon. Do you see the health and fitness industry being able to match that promise?
Not yet. I don't see that sort of that seminal shift yet, but I
Mm,
do think it's, I do think it'll catch on because
mm,
health, fitness, wellness has never been bigger and more sort of practiced than it is today.
yeah.
People are, it's so important in so many people's lives. I think more so than ever.
Hmm.
And I think it's inevitable that as more and more of the population sort of adopts that lifestyle, that more and more of the population will want to sort of live that lifestyle for the majority of their life. So I think it's a sort of a natural extension.
I feel so, man, but I feel like there's a big fork in the road, and that's the misconceptions, the half truths, and the confusion that's in the fitness industry because it was really built on lies. To be frank, when you look at the fitness industry, it started off in some direction, and when people jumped into it commercially, it kind of got lost, and there's so much misinformation. What's the right training methodology? What's the right diet that you should follow? Should you be bodybuilding? Is that actually good for you on the long term? So what happens is when a person is new, he's initiating into the fitness world, usually at a younger age, right? It's so intimidating and so mashed up that I think it's one of those things that needs to be torn down to be built back again. Like it has to be gone from the Wild West fitness industry to a modern fitness industry. Do you agree?
I do, and it's, I think in fitness, anyone, literally anyone, can open up a gym,
That's the problem.
right? I mean, that's the issue, right? Is literally all you need is capital and passion,
Hmm.
which in a way is good because there's sort of no barriers to engage in what you love and to do it as a profession.
Hmm.
But there's no sort of regulation from that point of view. I mean, any other industry, you need a formal education, you need some form of experience before you have that credibility
Hmm.
that you need to be able to sort of have your own clients, right?
Hmm.
But in fitness, it's sort of, I'm not gonna expose you or lend my experience and my education. I'm gonna lend my beliefs, and who says your beliefs are right?
Yeah.
That's just your philosophy, and that's when it can become dangerous. To your point.
Yeah, and it's not just the beliefs, the educational system behind the fitness industry can also be incorrect. Like you look at the health, I don't even know what they call it, the term for the organization in the United States, but they had that food pyramid. They had this concept of, low fat diet for the longest time. And this was pushed by the top scientists of the country. Now we know it's bullshit. Low fat diet means your hormones are fucked. Like there's so many things that were pushed educationally that are wrong today. And that's again why I say, and even myself, I'm confused. If you find me a fitness professional today that says he knows 100% beyond the shadow of a doubt what he's doing is correct, he's a liar.
I agree. I don't think anybody can say with certainty that they know 100% is correct, right? But
Yeah.
you have to know what's right for you.
Yeah. There you go. That's the point. Custom tailored fitness. This cookie cutter fitness, 100 treadmills in a gym, 1,000 machines in the gym, I don't think will survive. Especially past this corona phase, I think we are witnessing the slow death of this commercial fitness industry. And we're on the horizon towards a custom tailored, unique, self driven, self initiated fitness industry where education plays a much bigger role as well.
I'd love to see that. I think that would be a really positive shift. And I think that was starting to happen even before Corona. I mean, when we were sort of earlier in our discussion, we were talking about the various shifts that have happened in fitness.
Yeah,
And you started to see that shift when you're moving away from the cookie cutter big box gyms towards more specialized boutique offerings.
true.
Unfortunately, I think what's I think me personally, I want to see everyone succeed in
Hmm.
this industry, but I think what's the current situation makes it much more difficult for those specialized gyms, for the boutique fitness gyms, because they're so reliant on the class format, and obviously the class format, you're in close proximity with with your classmates,
Yeah.
that it's going to be really difficult. Whereas your big box gyms, I think you can sort of address the current situation a little easier. I mean, what we're seeing is, if you think of sort of a big box gym, um, sort of like a restaurant where they're sort of under directives to limit the amount of people that are in their establishment at any given time. Let's
Mhm.
say, they can only welcome 50% of capacity
Yeah.
in sort of in the current time. What we're seeing is that you almost have to book your slot just to be able to go in and work out.
Yes.
So you have to book your slot. Um, that's one thing that's taking place in various parts of the gym. You have areas marked out on the floor that are sort of 6 feet away from each other.
Hmm.
So it's strange to work out that way, but I think the protocols are more applicable or easily applicable for a big box gym than
Hmm.
it is for a boutique fitness studio. For the boutique fitness studios, it's absolutely right now a race to digital.
Yeah. But I would actually argue as well for the big box because they literally chopped big box's revenue by 50%. If it's 50%, it might be by 80%, because your costs are the same, if not getting higher, because for staff to work today and risk it, you're going to have to pay them more. For rent, square meters worth a lot more than it used to be, because now you need way more square meters to accommodate the people. So the problem is, I see it in Jiu Jitsu. It almost makes more sense to shut down your business than continue at this rate.
Yeah, I agree. It's a real issue. I mean, I think you're seeing that for businesses across the board.
Yeah.
Businesses that serve people. I mean, a lot of them are sort of making that decision. I think it's more efficient for me to just shut down until sort of things stabilize.
It's happening all over.
I mean,
the world.
I wonder how. I mean, I wonder, and I think, you know, I wanted to discuss with you. I mean, what's going to happen with jiu-jitsu gyms? How are we going to sort of, you know, emerge from this? Because obviously it's direct contact. So what are the things that sort of these gyms can do to sort of survive in the meantime? It's going to be really interesting to see.
You know, I had a guest on this podcast, Wendell Ribeiro, and he's one of the most experienced, I would say, coaches when it comes to academy organization and events. He was Gracie Humaita before most people got their black belts. He was a black belt coaching in Brazil. Today, he's consulting and helping a lot of these gyms stay alive. Just talking to him, you feel like there's a definite need for people to reconsider their business model. Jiu-Jitsu is going to have to become a lot more smaller, a lot more niche in terms of classes, like having these 40 to 50 person classes. Man, for the next 5 years, a lot of people, it's different ways. And I don't like saying this because I know I don't want to be the messenger that brings the bad news, you know? But the truth of the matter is, the influenza in 1918 didn't just go away. People forget what happened. It was not treated. It simply watered down towards the common flu that we get today. That process took 5 years before the cases really went down, right? They started developing these ways of vaccinating, these ways of treating it, and I don't know what. But what really happens is the virus got weaker. Now, we don't know the origin of the new coronavirus and all of this stuff, but if we're going to go by anywhere near those measures, let's go by half. Let's go 2.5 years, right? Because as soon as they release the vaccine, I'm not going to be lining up, to be honest. I'm not going to be the first in line to get that vaccine. I need to wait a little bit to see what the fuck it does if somebody grows a third leg after they take it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So realistically speaking, I think online is going to play a huge role, and jiu-jitsu is going to become a much smaller experience in terms of amount of people you train with. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. I mean, if sort of online, I could see, if you think of your classic jiu-jitsu session, you do your warm-up, you do your drill session in the middle of the class, and then you roll, right? So I think from a warm-up and from a drilling point of view, I could see that sort of translating well to virtual.
Yeah.
But then the rolling component, it's difficult. But I think it's I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it'll be sort of with your trusted circle of sort of training partners.
There's something huge, and if you got a leg up because you're in this industry, you know how to keep an eye on what's coming out new. If you got somebody that can create fast and cheap ways of testing coronavirus, then I'm down for putting all my money on that, because that's what's going to save this industry. Imagine yourself walking into a gym and you got a little bowl full of these small little tests that are 100% efficient, or 99.9, right? Leave room for doubt. You take one of them, you put it in your mouth, positive, get the fuck out. Call the police, get shot. Just kidding, but I mean, you gotta say, but positive, you don't go into the gym. Negative, you go in, no need for a face mask or gloves, you're negative. If we can get fast and reliable testing, I think that's even more important than vaccination. Airplanes, airports, restaurants, you just take that test, within a few seconds, you get the result, get in, you're done.
Yeah, no, I think that's sort of where we're headed, right? And I think I can actually see that maybe that's actually quicker than the vaccine. Who knows when we're going to get the vaccine? I don't know.
100%.
But I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah, so everybody's out there looking for the cure. I'm out there looking for the test, because the test today has a 30% false positive test rate. 30% of the people that took the test that got a positive result were actually negative, right? And the only real way in order to find out if a person has coronavirus, 100% accuracy today, is by CT scan. And the UAE surprisingly just released research proving that through laser technology, they're able to also determine if somebody has coronavirus or not. But these aren't cheap and they're not quick, you know? So I don't know. This is the thing that just throws me off. But there is a bright side to this. It's just not the bright side that people want. The side that I'm looking at is the digital side. You said something beautiful in the beginning. There's no barrier to entry to the fitness industry, right? As opposed to like being a doctor, an engineer, or consultant. But if you look at the barriers, it's capital, real estate. Now you don't even need capital or real estate, you know, which makes it scary for the fitness industry because anybody can just get a webcam now and become a coach, which is, I was talking to a guy about it and it's getting out of hand. But in Jiu Jitsu, something specialized, boxing, Jiu Jitsu, Muay Thai, these things, you can tell who knows who doesn't, you know? And there's sort of like a social etiquette in terms of belt. You're not gonna, rarely will you find a guy wearing a black belt that's not a black belt. Rarely, right? So,
yeah, no, for sure. For sure. I think the sort of the honor code in Jiu-Jitsu is so sort of preserved and well respected that you won't find that.
yeah, and for good reason, for such situations. So I was talking yesterday to Freddie Pedrique, and he's part of this scene that's growing digitally now in the US for Jiu-Jitsu. And they're doing webinars. And man, 60, 100, 200 people signing up to these webinars, right?
It's beautiful.
These coaches that don't own academies are making more than coaches that own academies.
Yeah, look, I think, look, like you said, I think in the combat sports, you can't hide your inexperience or your sort of your lack of expertise.
Yeah.
Right. So the ones that sort of flourish in sort of this new digital age, I think they'll be deserving because I think they will have the expertise, but they would have sort of figured out a way to reach the masses, and they should be rewarded for that. I mean, I think what you're seeing with whether it's sort of in the martial arts or just fitness in general is people are operating, or sort of entrepreneurs, gym owners are operating in the sense of, let's sort of keep ticking over in sort of the current time or temporarily until things are back to normal. Let's just, pump out some classes. It'll be a trainer a lot of times it's a trainer in sort of their living room. The cat is in the background. And let's just sort of find this temporary solution until we get back to normal. But it's not a temporary thing. And I think we've been in this lockdown now for months, and sort of this training at home, the more you do it, the more it's going to be part of the way that you train. It might not be the main part of the way you train, but you're probably going to train at home maybe once or twice a week, right? So it's going to be it should be part of a gym's offering going forward indefinitely. So I would encourage them to sort of plan that way, to really think strategically in terms of, let's create some really good content, because this is going to be a part of our business, a part of our life for the foreseeable future. This is not going away anytime soon.
100%. Man, Faisal, this is exactly why I wanted to have you on the podcast. You have a unique eye in this industry because you're working in a field that looks for the unique and the new. And I think a lot of the guys not stuck in the old school. Old school is beautiful when it comes to martial art, but they need those fresh set of ears and eyes so that they can think differently. Just you talking and saying what you just said. The guys, like you said, that are doing a temporary setup from their living room with their cat taking a dump in the background, it's working out for now, but the guys that are going to get a leg up is the ones that go professional at home. Really get that production level up, get those mats clean and nice, get that background considered, have some graphics coming in, learn to use broadcasting software like the one I'm using right now. And this is where I think that game will change, because you're right, it's not going away. Even if we do go back to normal, man, I got friends of mine that run gyms and they're like, dude, I've never had this many people in a class. You know, they're doing an online class that's got 50, 60, 70. It's like, I can't even fucking pull those numbers when I'm open in normal times. I'm actually doing somewhat better in classes. So if you got a gym that the members are either there or not, it's binary, 0 or 1. But with online, you can get them halfway.
Yeah, and not just that. It's sort of, the world is your oyster now. I mean, before you were confined to, from a customer point of view, it's the people that are sort of live in your city, and from a from an instructor point of view, it's people that live in your city. You're sort of serving the people in your community. Now there's nothing
100%.
stopping you from reaching the rest of the world.
So true.
Right. And even if I'm sort of a gym owner or sort of a fitness establishment owner here in the Emirates, why can't I hire someone that's based in New York that has a huge following there? And he can run part of my classes. So if I have a class schedule, it'll be, a mix of people, of trainers that are based here that have their following here, a mix of trainers that have, that are based in Europe that have their following there, then some trainers in the US. And now I'm really reaching global.
Yes.
And I'm not limiting myself to my immediate community.
Yeah.
So there's a huge opportunity out there.
Yeah. That's the exciting part. And we would have never looked at it for another 10 years, 20 years, probably. Like now we were forced to look at it. And another side of that coin, the problem was that people weren't comfortable. Forget the coaches trying to do it and forcing people to get into it. The people themselves, they weren't comfortable paying with credit cards online still. They weren't comfortable with how would it feel? It's awkward me talking to a coach online. Now they have no choice. So they tried it and it's not so fucking bad. Moving forward, I can do this. It's exciting. I know it's a dark time and it's difficult in the history of mankind, what we're going through. But I'm an optimist and I'm excited about these times, man. We went through the internet revolution in our lifetimes and now we're going through this fucking, I don't even know what to call this revolution, right? I don't want to call it the Corona revolution, but I want to call it the digital revolution, maybe would be an accurate coining.
I think so. I think it's absolutely a digital revolution. And it's not just, we talk a lot about fitness and martial arts, but it's also in, if you look at sort of regular industry and the way that people work.
Yeah.
I think people are going to be working from home a lot more than they used to. And that's going to be a normal thing, maybe once or twice a week, right? Because all these companies, obviously, to continue working during this time, have had to invest in infrastructure to allow their employees and their normal course of business to operate, right? And they're not suddenly going to just drop that because they can go back to the office. They've invested way too much building those systems and that infrastructure that they're going to encourage their employees to say, listen, we actually offer you great work-life balance. Come work here as opposed to working there. You get to work from home once or twice a week. And I think people would jump on that.
That's so interesting, man. That's something that I haven't really thought about much, but commercial real estate is in trouble because, if you don't need people to work in the office as much, if you really sit and think about it, it's one of those, it doesn't make sense. Why do I need him next to me? Why do I need him breathing down my face to do his job? If he's not capable of doing his job without me watching him, then maybe he shouldn't have his job in the first place. But damn, man. You think people will get paid less though?
I don't see why they should. It's to the point that you just made. Rent is oftentimes sort of the largest expense for a company, right? Yeah. And now they're beginning to realize that, do we actually need it? Do we need such a large office? We're getting by without it.
Yeah.
People are doing their jobs, they're professional, they're responsible. Do they need to come in and clock in and out and just sit next to each other to be able to do their job efficiently?
Yeah.
Not really. They're doing their job efficiently from home. I think the ones that are sort of convinced of that will, they'll have that light bulb moment that'll say, we don't need that added expense.
So true, so true. And possibly they don't even need to travel as much as they used to. Right? All these consulting jobs, all this stuff that they used to travel nonstop. People used to travel just to sign a fucking document, right? I was one of them. I work in Europe in the Balkans, and I have to travel to sign something and come back. Because of this Corona thing, now I can go to the embassy, sign it, get it authenticated and gone, and I don't have to travel. Not good for the travel industry, but good for me,
Yeah, it's strange. It's like we're so connected because we've had to find ways to connect with each other.
Yeah.
Because we can't connect with each other physically, but we're so disconnected in terms of, we haven't been able to connect with each other physically. You see what I mean? It's such a weird dichotomy. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. It's a weird time we're living in. Everybody's figuring it out. And that's what I tell everybody. Stop acting like you know what the fuck you're doing. There is no blueprint for this shit. We're in uncharted territories. We barely have a sail. We're blowing at it ourselves, right? And people need to invest in themselves right now. Don't you think? This is the time. When have you ever gotten this chance? It feels like we're back in school days, except minus the school. We've got no responsibilities at a point. It can go two ways. You can become a Netflix guru where you can actually become the next version of yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think people that, maybe didn't take their health and their fitness as seriously as they should, I don't think there's that excuse anymore.
No.
You can't say that I don't have time. You absolutely can't say that. You have all the time in the world,
Mhm.
and fitness is the cure. Fitness is the best form of immunity.
Yes.
So from that point of view, then you absolutely should take advantage of the situation, take the opportunity, and like you said, engage in self-development and betterment.
So what are you working on in this time? Like, what are you taking advantage of since you've got so much more free time?
So look, I mean, I think it's a blessing that I get to spend time with with my family,
Yes.
with my son,
Yes.
watching him grow up. I'm still training every day. I haven't slowed down at all. I don't think anybody should. And in terms of my community with Evolve, it's figuring out different ways to reach them. A lot of what we did in the past, we do two things, right? We do activations where we sort of develop unique, call it wellness experiences in unique locations,
Mm-hmm.
and we also design gyms. And now that's shifted in terms of the activations, and you alluded to this earlier. That's obviously on hold until it's safe to do so. But what's not on hold is our ideas. It's okay, let's develop our pipeline, let's plan, and then when things are back to normal, we're ready to go.
Nice.
In the meantime, we'll be virtual, and we'll try to sort of deliver a unique experience to our community.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of from a mind, body, and spirit point of view. And then from the gym design perspective, yeah, look, nobody's opening a gym right now, so we're not designing gyms, but a lot of people are investing in their home gyms.
Yeah.
And we're trying to communicate the message that you don't need a large budget, you don't need a large space to train effectively. You really need your body weight.
Mm.
You need a little bit of space. You can have half a bedroom, your body weight, and not a large budget. And we can, or you can, set up an amazing sort of training setup.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've been trying to help people with. Is we'll set something up for you based on the way that you like to train,
Mm-hmm.
based on your budget, and based on the space that you have. So that's sort of an example of how we've had to adapt in the current time.
I think a bodybuilder had a heart attack while you were talking. It's probably actual fact that they had a heart attack while we're talking. But on a serious note, I definitely think you're right. Like the iron age is over, and it's time to move into this type of fitness.
Yeah. Look, I think from a functional point of view,
Yeah.
I think you don't need to be sort of pumping iron bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I think we know that now.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding is its own sport. If you like bodybuilding, by all means, do it.
Yeah.
Everyone should, if it makes you happy, and it's, find that form of movement that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
They're all great. But from a functional point of view, you can be very strong without a lot of equipment. I think is the takeaway.
That's the thing. When I diss on bodybuilding, I went through my bodybuilding phase. I think most guys have. But my thing is, it's like powerlifting, I consider it a different animal. That I consider a sport. And like you said, strength comes in many forms, in many different ways. The thing with bodybuilding that we're starting to see, and not many people are aware of, and because of their, this psychological dissonance, people have their psychological mind frame, and you trying to attack it in something different makes them shut down. The people that shut down in this are the ones in bodybuilding, but they need to understand, and this is my personal opinion on it. Today, we've come to a point where we realize bodybuilding is sacrifice. It is not building. It's misframed. Called bodybuilding, but it should be body breaking. Because you're literally breaking your body to build it, and you're sacrificing years and quality of life, in my opinion.
It's a great point. Yeah. That's a really sort of interesting way of looking at it, and I can't say I disagree.
Yeah, I mean, it should be one of those things labeled like cigarettes at this point, in my opinion, in terms of fitness, because not only is the bodybuilding itself the problem. Most people, when they go into bodybuilding, what do? They go straight to the gym, straight to the barbell, and start lifting before researching. This is one issue. Then their research comprises of bro talk in the changing room, which is even fucking worse. The supplement industry is totally unregulated. You don't know what they're fucking making in the manufacturing plant because they're not FDA approved. They could be making cocaine with their creatine. God knows, you know what I mean? This is something huge for me, and I definitely think we need more fitness companies, more brands bringing awareness and creating products, even if they're more expensive, but getting rid of this trash that we have. Like, you know what I mean? Am I too carried away with this? Am I too focused on the bodybuilding?
No, not at all. I mean, look, I think I like the way that you framed it when you said it's body breaking, and I think what you're alluding to is that the sacrifice that real sort of people that are so deep in bodybuilding where they're depleting their body of and what is a healthy diet,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're putting a lot of sort of unnatural substances in their body to sort of enhance their physique
Yeah.
instead of enhancing their health. I think that's really the choice that they make is, do you enhance your physique or do you enhance your health?
There you go. That's
and
the point.
I think that's the point. And they I don't want to speak for bodybuilding and sort of generalize it,
Mm-hmm.
but I think you see that at large in that there's a choice towards the physique.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to run towards improving our health.
Yeah.
Your training, your nutrition, all of that should be the end goal, right?
Yes.
It's is this making me a healthier, better version of myself?
Yeah.
Is this increasing my likelihood of being able to move efficiently and be fit at 70 years old?
Exactly.
Or is that diminishing the odds of me being able to do that?
Exactly. I think that's something why your brand and what you do with Evolve Sports Solution resonates with me, because I see every single thing you're involved with is very functional, very leading edge of health and fitness, like the water training equipment, the cryotherapy, that sphere that you guys are promoting. A lot of the brands and even the events that you've done online, I've taken a look. They're focused on that side. I like this. I want to see more people doing this because the market's still very young, I would say. Could you tell us a little bit about Evolve Sports Solution, what you guys do? Because it's quite diverse.
Yeah, it is. It's quite diverse. And look, I think it's quite broad when we say that we are wellness consultants. I mean, what does that really mean? I think we try to help anybody that's in the wellness industry or that has a wellness sort of concern, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try to find a way to help you. And I think what that's translated to is two things. It's consulting and activation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll explain what that means. And that's also design, facility design. So in the consulting and activation, it could be a company, it could be a gym, it could be a government entity that says, listen, we have a certain strategy, and we think that we can sort of enable that through a wellness initiative. So to give you an example, Barry's Bootcamp, and full disclosure, I'm an investor in Barry's Bootcamp, but Barry's Bootcamp, very successful boutique gym globally, and very successful in Dubai. They had plans to launch in Abu Dhabi.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, so Barry's was a client.
Yeah.
In this example, a hotel brand here, the Edition Hotel, another client. Okay. We want to attract. The ask is we want to attract a younger clientele and demographic to the hotel, because that's, as a brand, what we stand for, what people associate us with sort of abroad. It's sort of a hip brand. What can you do to help us? So the solution was, let's marry the two together. Let's bring Barry's and the Edition together. We'll have a Barry's day at the Edition. Mm-hmm. We'll have different Barry's workouts in different parts of the hotel. And what that does is the people that are taking part, they're getting exposure to Barry's ahead of their launch in Abu Dhabi. They're connecting with the brand, and they're also seeing different parts of the hotel.
Right.
So that's an example of an activation. So we've sort of activated the hotel. We've brought in, sort of exposed the hotel to sort of their target demographic, mm-hmm. and we've introduced Barry's to Abu Dhabi. So they had, because a lot of times when you're sort of an entrepreneur in this space, you're so focused on day to day. How do I sort of is my schedule on point? Is the gym clean? It's so sort of focused on day to day operations. You can't take that sort of step back and focus on growth and expansion.
Yes,
it takes a long time to get to that stage where you can hire people to do the day to day, where you can sort of have that top down view. But we can come in and help, and I think that's certainly our aspiration. That's what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And similar to yourself, I mean, I think you're doing an amazing thing in that you're shining a light on people in this space that are trying to to positively impact the space.
Yes.
I think we're trying to do a similar thing in that we're exposing the wellness community to up and coming brands. So, we showcased Barry's in this instance. Our last activation, it was virtual. We had a mindfulness coach, spiritual souffle. We introduced that company to our community. We had Bespoke Ride come in and do mobility. We sort of introduced them. And then we had Disc Dubai come in and do sort of injury prevention. So we're trying to be a platform that introduces different wellness companies to our community and to draw in their community to our community as well.
I love that.
That's sort of from an activation point of view. And then on the gym design, it's anything from a private residential gym to a home gym to a gym in a building, where, listen, this is our budget, this is the way that we like to train, this is the space that we have, can you design something for us? And a lot of times what we've seen, I mean, if you look at the community, if you live in a community and you go to that community gym, it's just a bunch of equipment that is thrown there without any thought. Without any thought, they've spent way more than they need to, and there's no thought behind the layout. And we'd like to come in and say, you spent twice as much as you needed to.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't need this and that. And if you went with a layout like this, it would have been more space efficient and a better experience for the people training. So it's a long answer. I apologize for that, but it's sort of that's really what we do.
Not at all. I like everything that you said makes sense and resonates with me. And I like what you said about the platform. Like, you're bringing this Dubai, you're bringing Bespoke and all of them and showcasing them. I think here's the thing. In the Middle East, we've been playing catch up, right? We've been playing catch up to the West. It's always our North Star has been the West when it comes to what we should be doing. I think it's going to come to a point where we mature enough where we start paving our own way, right? Because we need to adapt to who we are as a culture, as an identity. We've got different approaches. For example, like, there's much more preference for women to train amongst women in the Middle East than there is women training amongst women alone in the West. There's different things that can be done. But the main issue is, without having a platform to check in on, right? To reconnect and to talk to others, you end up isolated. Right, so this Dubai would have probably never talked to Bespoke, would have never talked to this company, and would have never checked on where they can synergize to elevate the industry. And that synergy is the exponential growth that happens in industry. But what happens is, when you got 5 people sitting alone, everybody working on the same math problem, they're all going to take fucking forever. But if 2 or 3 of them come together and share a little few notes, that math problem is going to become a problem from yesterday, and they're going to have a new one to solve tomorrow. So what you're doing is great, and that's the whole point of what I'm doing here as well. Like, when we bridge Faisal Aasam from Evolve Sports Solution with yesterday BJJ World, Freddie Pedrick trying to showcase the US industry to whoever, ideas start clicking. People start connecting. You get emails, they'll get emails. I get messages all the time. Dude, I didn't think of that. What if we do this? And I think that's the next step for our industry as a whole.
I couldn't agree more.
You're also, I correct me if I'm wrong, but you have products that you sell as well?
Yeah, so we do sell products. On the triathlon side, we sell Blue 70, which is basically wetsuits and swim products for that component of triathlon.
Okay.
You mentioned, and triathlon is huge now. Triathlon, I think, is the growth of triathlon in this country is very similar to the growth of Jiu Jitsu and combat sports in this country. They've sort of, the communities have just grown exponentially, and there's communities literally in every emirate now.
Yeah.
The same way that you can do a jiu-jitsu tournament in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Fujairah, Sharjah, you name every emirate, you could probably take part in a jiu-jitsu tournament.
Yeah.
You can find amazing academies. The same thing with triathlon. There's a community in every emirate. There's a race in every emirate. So they've really sort of grown together. So I think the way that we're sort of catering to triathlon from a product point of view is with Blue 70. It's mainly on the swim side.
Is that the Helix wetsuits and stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay,
that's exactly right. And then the cryosphere as well.
Yeah.
So that's a recovery tool. which is basically, cold therapy fused with massage therapy.
Right, right. Tell me something, man. I want to pick your brain on this. Why has triathlons exploded, I feel, in the last 5 years? I feel like something clicked, something happened, and it just got catapulted. Why?
Yeah. So I think it's a combination of things. I think similar to jiu-jitsu, it had strong government support.
Uh-huh.
And I think so from a grassroots point of view, it had that support, and that sort of translated and sort of moved from there. You have obviously global races in Abu Dhabi. So in Abu Dhabi, you have the Abu Dhabi International Triathlon,
Yeah.
ITU. So ITU is sort of the global season of the sport of triathlon.
Okay.
It's they have one of their official stops on their race calendars in Abu Dhabi.
Uh-huh.
All the best triathletes in the world come to Abu Dhabi. That's in Abu Dhabi. In Dubai, you have Ironman Dubai. So people fly in from all over the world. Dubai is a destination. They do a race and they hang out in Dubai for the weekend. So you have these global properties. You have the government support. You have the climate where you can train, almost year round.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really sort of a combination of those things. And then, the clubs started to form, the training facilities started to form, and it was a snowball effect from there.
Interesting, man. Because I look at like triathlon organizations, and sorry for the analogy, and I don't mean it in the negative way, but I look at them like drug dealers, because they start you up like, here, take a relay. Just join, bring up a couple of friends, swim, run, cycle, do whatever the fuck you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And then you do it and you get the itch. You see that guy run by you, and then he's also doing the cycling and the swimming, you feel like a bitch. You go home, like, fuck, man. I feel good that I did it, but man, that guy made me look like a little child. Then you get into, the half triathlon, or is there a quarter?
No, so again, there's various distances. You have your super sprint, your Olympic.
There you go. Drug dealers, man.
Full Ironman.
They learned from Escobar, man.
But you're exactly right, Jid. You're exactly right, and we've seen this, with almost everyone that I've seen get into the sport.
Yeah.
And it's, myself included. You start to the relay, and then you do a super sprint, and then you do a sprint, and you do an Olympic, and then you do a half Ironman, and then you want to, be faster in your half Ironman, and it becomes addictive.
Yes.
And it's a sport where, it's not like, if you compare it, it's so interesting. If you compare triathlon with mixed martial arts, I would consider sort of the best triathletes and the best mixed martial artists as the two best athletes in the world.
Okay.
But you have one sport where, your race is 5 to 10 hours long, dependent on the format. You have another sport where it's a championship fight. It's 25 minutes. It's if it's a regular bout, it's 15 minutes. So you have 15 minutes versus 5 hours, yet they're both the best athletes in the world. How does that make sense? It's just the different sort of energy systems and form of training. So I find that very interesting. So the diversity of training and the modalities and the energy that you can sort of, dive into. But going back to your earlier point about the addiction to triathlon, it's because it's sort of 5 hours long. Your training sessions are always sort of an hour at least, right? You can't go in and do your 25, 30-minute hit session and be done.
Yeah.
No, you're not getting a real session in unless you're doing sort of an hour. So you're spending 10, 12 hours a week training.
Yes.
It's such a big part of your life. But that's it. It's such a big part of your life, and that you're almost addicted. You're a triathlete. You're living that lifestyle. You see what I mean?
It's a 0 or 1, because you're either consumed or you're not. Because like you're saying, a triathlon, in order to train for it, you can't wing it. You wing it, your immune system will slap you in the face. You have to dedicate the time, which means you're being very nice when you say 1 hour. Let's be real. It's 2 to 3 hours a day. I know you guys. You guys are crazy. You guys really put in the hours, because it's not one of those, it's not tennis. It's not to diss tennis. Beautiful sport. And there are athletes on the extreme side that train 5 hours a day. But I like the comparison you made between triathletes and martial artists for one reason. Working towards a triathlon, a relay, a half triathlon, a sprint, this is quite good for your body. You learn very good practices. You learn how to maximize efficiency. You learn that your body's a machine that can do things that you want to do. It's like martial arts. You can train once a day, twice a day, you know, you can get into competitions and stuff, and that's great. You can even maybe do a an MMA fight, 15 minutes long. But once you get to the big leagues, the Ironmans, right, the full marathons, these kind of like big things, and once you get to UFC, now you're playing at a level that is not productive to your body. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of essentially breaking your body down from how much you're training.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
And that's where I want to talk to you. The mind game, right? Triathlon, at a certain point, has nothing to do with your physical conditioning. You have to get ready. Let's say this is the triathlon, right? Starting here, ending here. From here to here, it's physical. But from here to here, it's mental. There is no physical training on earth will get you from this to there without you like falling over and dying at the end, right? What is it that makes you go past the breaking point, past the point where you're like, fuck me for thinking I even wanted to do this. Why the fuck am I still running? My knees hurt. I shat myself. Like there's crazy shit that you hear from triathlon. Why? Like in your mind, how do you explain this?
So look, I think it sounds crazy, but that's exactly why you do it. It's because it's not worth it if you haven't faced that moment and overcome it. Because in every race, you learn something about yourself. In every race, you have it's sort of a 2-hour or 4-hour or 6-hour, depending on the format, conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's inevitable. You're gonna hit that moment where which you described, where it's not physical anymore, and you're gonna have to push through. It's gonna suck at the moment, but you're gonna come out from the other side, and you're gonna look back and say, "That was awesome. That was amazing." The discussion which I had with myself, and sort of the depth and what I had to find in myself to get through it. That's such a unique experience that you have with yourself. That you want, that you sort of, it becomes such a positive thing, and you chase it, right? You want to learn more about yourself. So I think it's people do it for the accomplishment. They don't do it just because it's another training session. They're chasing that accomplishment, and for it to be considered an accomplishment, it has to be difficult.
Yeah, I think definitely when somebody says, I did an Ironman, even a person that doesn't know what an Ironman comprises of, you ask everybody on the street, how many kilometers is in an Ironman cycle? They're like, 50? No, it's a lot more. But to them, at the thought of 50, they're in awe. But when you tell them the real numbers, they're like, oh no, fuck off. There's no way. Like, why? Why would a human being do this? That's the first answer that people say. But I totally understand you. And the whole reason I bring this up is because martial arts, in a small span of time, right? Not in the, like you said, it's different energy systems, but in a small span of time, it takes you to that point where you screw up, right? You try to take down double leg too late, right? And the guy sprawls on you, ends up on top, rolls towards your back. 2 minutes into the fight, you've got 3 minutes left, and you're broken. You're in a shit position. You have all of the ingredients to losing is there, right? And let's take point systems out for a little bit. In your heart, if a guy took my back, nearly strangled me, did all of these crazy things and I don't know what, and then I just got him off and I passed his guard, I don't feel like I won that fight. I feel like I just won by points. That overcoming in your mind in order to believe that I won, I went from losing to winning, I feel is the same thing between your knee hurting on that last 10 kilometers of your run, right, of your triathlon, and you pushing 10K with a messed up knee. Like, I think that's a similar feeling.
It is for sure. And I think, in any, whether you're sparring, whether it's a sort of a real fight, whether it's a Jiu Jitsu roll or an MMA competition, it's very rare that you're not going to have adversity at one point. And once you hit that point of adversity, you're also going to have that similar discussion with yourself, like we described in triathlon, right? You have to. I'm in a difficult spot right now. How can I get out of it? Do I want to get out of it? Do I have that will to get out of it? Am I tough enough to get out of it? Do I have that sort of the mentality to sort of push through? So it's very similar. You have to have that conversation with yourself. And so I think that's similar. And I think another thing that's quite similar is, if we're thinking about jiu-jitsu, when you first start off, you're so frantic, right? You're expanding, you're exerting so much energy, you're so tense,
Yes.
everything is full force, and you gas out so quickly. Even you might be in tip top shape, but you gas out so quickly.
Hmm.
But then you become more experienced, more proficient. You find the ability to stay calm
Mm.
and to be energy efficient, and you're actually expending a lot less energy, applying a lot less force,
Mm.
yet you become more forceful,
Yes. Beautiful.
right?
Beautifully said.
And so it's the same thing. It's in triathlon. It's how can I be more energy efficient? How can I find the ability to sort of control my energy? And I think it's similar in jiu-jitsu.
Man, well said. Like that's absolutely the point at hand. Is too many people miss that when they're training either triathlon or jiu-jitsu. People say like go hard and pohada, go insane, and then it'll be easy afterwards. But you also have to learn to go easy and be effective with easy, right? It's one thing to use your power and strength to push out of a bad position, and it's another thing to use technique and efficiency to get out of it and still be able to do something after you get out of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I see the crossover. Though I'm trying to get to something right now, Faisal. I've been talking to a few guys on Instagram since I posted your image on the cycle. So many people messaged me this one question: why are people cycling and doing triathlon training that do MMA and jiu-jitsu? Where's the crossover? Where's the transfer of performance? Any ideas?
Yeah, so I think it's the energy efficiency which we described as a huge thing. It's endurance sports and triathlon. Really, as you become more proficient, you
Mm.
develop that ability to be energy efficient.
Mm.
Say, okay, I'm tired, but I know how to keep going and manage my energy.
Mhm.
I know how to do it. I've through my hours of training, through various races and the experience that I've accumulated. I know I'm tired, but I know I don't need to stop. I just need to make a slight adjustment and control my energy,
Mm.
and I can keep going. And it's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. It's you know it's a position game, and in this position, is it safe? Can I take a breather here as I look to advance? Or would I be vulnerable if I take a breather? Or now I need to be a bit more sort of forceful,
Yeah.
or I learned the ability to be calm and to sort of to flow and to manage my energy. So there's from that point of view, it's very it's I think it's there's a lot of sort of transferable things
Very
that go
interesting.
from endurance to jiu-jitsu.
Very interesting seeing it go that direction across the stream. I have a funny story for you. I don't know if you know this situation. Well, my brother got heavily into triathlons,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
so my brother Saad and your brother Saif, they opt on this triathlon phase in a scary way. It was not normal at all. And this is why I used to tell and joke around with Saad, like, man, are you on drugs and we don't know? Like, you're talking about it like it's cocaine. Like, there's no way this is not a illegal substance. They were so addicted to it. It came to a point that Saad wanted me and my sister to just get a sense for it and try it. And he was so passionate. It's like me trying to convince him to do jiu-jitsu because I tried that and didn't work. But with him, he was successful. He's like, let's do this. Let's do a family effort. Let's try to accomplish a relay together. I saw you in that event in Yas Island.
Yes,
You
I know which race you're referring to. Yeah,
yeah. So you were with Mohammed Qaisi,
yeah.
and who else was with you?
Omar Ode.
Amar Audi, yeah.
Yes,
So my brother like talks to us, and me and my sister. When my brother says this, and bro, sorry if you're listening to this. Well, you know it, you know the story. So
yeah,
my
yeah.
my sister and I were like, oh, that sounds cool. That sounds nice. Then we go back to each other like, shit, which one are we gonna take? Like, what fuck we do? We have no like. I don't cycle. I don't swim. I don't run. All I do is jiu-jitsu. Right? I might lift a few weights and this, but so anyways, I had some confidence because at that point I was training like sometimes twice a day, 6 days a week. So I knew I had a level of fitness. I just didn't know if it's going to work out for me or not. And because of my knee issues and cycling hurts my ass when I sit on a bike too long, especially since I'm not conditioned, I'm like, let me take the swimming. So I jumped on that. So what happens is I was kind of stupid about the whole situation. Very, very silly. And I'm like, let me take this as an experiment. Let me see if jiu-jitsu and the knowledge of jiu-jitsu works for a relay. It'll save my ass. I can't remember what the distance was. 750 meters?
750 for the
750.
swim. Yeah,
750 for the swim.
yeah.
Okay, Faisal, I did not touch the water for 4 months. The last time I touched the water, we were in Greece on holiday. That was when I touched the water.
Wow.
And you know, Greece holiday, tzatziki and all this, and then you go swim, so you're not training. I bought a pair of goggles and I bought a cap,
Swim cap.
swim cap,
Yep.
and I had them in the boxes. I go to the triathlon event and I pull out my bag, and there was like my brother, a bunch of his friends, my sister, and family came to cheer us. I open up my bag and I pull out the boxes and I start moving the goggles. I start moving the
Wow.
cap. Everybody's looking at me like,
Wow.
did you forget your goggles and you bought new ones? I'm like, no, these are the ones I'm using for this event.
First time I tried them. Yeah.
I spent the entire night before researching technique. So, can you hear me fine?
Yeah. Yeah. I can hear just fine.
So, the night before, I'm like, listen, what do we do in Jiu Jitsu? What is the strength and core of Jiu Jitsu? Technique. If you know the technique really well, you'll be more efficient and you'll need to use less energy. So, I stayed up all night listening to podcasts about triathlons, particularly swimming. I watched every YouTube video you can imagine about connecting an invisible string from your nose to your fingers and all of this crazy shit, bro. Okay. I even went through your Instagram and Muhammad Yusuf's Instagram to see what you guys were up to with swimming, to see if I can get some hits. I devoured. I was like a Python program. I came out of that experience zombie mode, robot. I went into it. I pulled out the stuff. Everybody's looking at me like I'm an idiot. I had a plan in my head. I jump in the water. I'm spending very little energy. I warmed up enough. When it started, I was literally following in my head the technique that the guy on YouTube was doing. I did not stop. I did not delay. I finished one of the first few people that finished that swim. Everything was good until I got out of the water. This is the one piece of information I didn't scavenge on the internet. I felt like I had partied for 48 hours when I got out of the water. Bro, what the fuck was that? Nobody told me about this. When you swim for a long period of time, 500, 750 meters, it's not the gassing out that gets you. It's not the drowning. It's you hitting your head as you get out of the water from falling. I get out of the water and the world is doing this. The whole world was spinning. Why?
Yeah, I mean, look, especially when you're swimming in a pool, it's nice and flat, right? There's no waves. But then when you're swimming in a triathlon and you're dealing with current and waves, you're sort of, you're becoming disoriented without even knowing it. And then you're swimming for, call it, minimum of 20 minutes in a horizontal position, exerting energy, and then you come out of that, you immediately get into vertical, and you're sprinting to the next part of the triathlon.
Bro.
So I mean, it's that transition, really.
When everybody talked to me, they're like, man, are you crazy? How difficult was it? What was the hardest part? I'm like, the hardest part was reaching my brother to fucking transition. I'm like, the swim was cool. But I felt genuinely like my sister-in-law, God bless her, she was on the ropes. Go, Zaid, let's go. I'm looking at her like, who the fuck are you? I can't see anything. I'm like holding onto the walls, limping over. I get to my brother. I'm like, why? What happened to me? He's like, bro, just sit down. I sat down, he moved the tag and he went. And that was the takeaway for me, man. Like, God damn, there's so much more to it than we know, man.
But you know what, Zed? You bring up such an interesting point, because I think, and I think you can apply with the sort of the concept which you're mentioning to both sports. So I think in triathlon, really you get to a point where to sort of stand out to your competition, you have to train your transitions, right? Everyone becomes really fast in swimming, cycling, running if you're doing that, multiple times per week consistently. But it's the transitions. Sort of how fast can I transition between the two? So, that's something which I've focused on, for example, is finishing my swim and then sprinting and becoming comfortable with that energy.
Wow.
And then if you look at mixed martial arts, it's come such a long way where, back in the day, obviously we started off with a jiu-jitsu player versus a striker versus a wrestler. Then you learned two disciplines, right? It's the striker that can defend a takedown. It's the grappler that can strike a little bit. And then after that, it became the complete mixed martial artist that can do the grappling, the striking, the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, and the striking.
Yes.
And then there was another transition. It was the strength and conditioning that came on top of that. But then what you're seeing now is the transition game. It's the transition between striking and grappling. It's the clinching on the fence. It's the scrambling, right? So in both sports, it's the transition is so important.
Wow, man, so well observed. I never even thought of that. You're right, transitioning from wrestling to jiu-jitsu, then from jiu-jitsu to stand-up and striking. Interesting. I wonder how many people are actually sitting down and training that very confidently. Very, very good point.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at George St. Pierre, right? I mean, I consider him the best mixed martial artist of all time.
Yes.
Everyone has their opinion on who it is, but I think if you look at GSP, you never knew if he was going to strike with you. You never knew if he was going to take you down. The timing of his takedown was beautiful. Yes. He was so unpredictable, right? And he mastered sort of that transition game.
Yeah, I think that's what made him really famous. That shoot boxing they talk about, like he knew how to duck under a punch and take you down, and his transition from taking you down to taking your side was lightning fast. You're talking about a fight against Matt Serra, right? Remember the rematch?
Yeah, I was there. I was in the arena.
What? Oh no! And I'm asking you if you remember, so you should tell me more about it, man. For me, it was just Matt Serra. For the uninitiated in jiu-jitsu or in MMA, he's a killer. He's a killer on the mats. Like I didn't even think George St. Pierre had a chance against him before that fight, but he showed that he does. Like that's how good this guy is. He can make a phenom like Serra look normal.
I mean, Matt Serra is to your point. This is a black belt from Renzo Gracie.
OG black belt from Renzo, yes.
Exactly. I mean, this is as legitimate as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
Right. And GSP, won the ground battle, but it's you have jiu-jitsu, then you have jiu-jitsu for MMA, you have wrestling for MMA.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's probably one of the reasons for it, I guess.
Very true. Very true. Listen, honestly, I enjoy talking to you, and I can't wait to continue this conversation many times over again. I wanted to ask you before ending this podcast, what do you have in your future plans right now? Like Corona pandemic in consideration and post-Corona. What are the plans for you, your company, and what you're up to?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I mean, look, I had a blast speaking with you.
Me too.
This was, great discussion. Great to catch up with you here. I think as far as what we have planned at Evolve is our sort of our activation season. So hopefully, once it's safe to do so, later in the year, we have our experiences lined up. They're ready to go.
Nice.
We have amazing wellness experiences in different parts of the country in unique locations. And we'll be able to hopefully announce that soon.
Yeah.
And also, we're helping our clients with designing their home gyms at the moment and finding solutions for them to train effectively and cost efficiently in these times.
So for these events that you guys are planning for the activation period, how can people discover you? How can they find you? Are you on Instagram, website? What's the right way?
Yeah, so I think the best way to find us is on Instagram. It's evolve.sports.solutions.
Okay.
You can find us there. We'll have all our sort of events announced there. And yeah, please, reach out to us. We'd love to connect with you.
Man, you heard it, man. I really hope people do reach out to you. And it's not just like for products or for activation, Faisal. I really feel like you and Muhammad Yusuf working really hard on it. I see the passion. I see you guys online. Like the way you're posting, the way you're going about it is not two guys trying to run a business. It's almost like two people having way too much fun to be making money out of it. You know what I mean? But I think people should reach out more to people like you to have these discussions on to where are we headed, what's possible, and maybe a person coming to open a gym or to set up a home gym should talk to someone like you, not to open that gym alone, but be open to understanding maybe gym is not the right thing. Maybe there's something else for you based on who you are and your experience. So I wish you all the success, bro, and I'm happy to talk to you. I can't wait to do this one more time in the near future.
Thanks a lot, Zid. Thanks a lot for giving us sort of the platform to come on and
Absolutely,
tell
my pleasure.
the Evolve story and to catch up with you over things that we love.
Habibi, thank you, bro. Everybody on YouTube, thank you so much for hanging out. I see you on chat showing so much love for Faisal. You got your whole... I see a lot of Aasams in the chat showing some love. But thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. This will be live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite platforms very soon, I hope.